The Sphinx competition is, of course, one of my favorite events of every year. I just love not only the celebration of Black and brown young people and their love of classical music, but boy, the elevation of these performances and the skill level that is on display always just blows my mind. And this year, of course, is no different. But talk about what's different about this year because of the pandemic. We're not able to do Sphinx quite the way we're used to.
Absolutely. And the talent every year has always increased. And that's something that we are very proud of in terms of how we're able to recruit new musicians to enter the competition and bring them here to really give them the tools that they need to succeed. Of course, this year is like no other in terms of the pandemic and being able to shift. How does the Sphinx competition look and how do we adjust and adapt to today? And that's something that we've always done with our Sphinx competition and our organization work that we do is how can we adapt to make sure that we are staying relevant while also providing the support to the musicians. So this year, we were able to keep the competition and go virtual. As most people who have followed the competition know that we are able to usually bring in an entire 60-member orchestra, the Sphinx Symphony Orchestra, who comes in and acts as mentors to some of these musicians. Unfortunately, we weren't able to do that with the pandemic, but we were able to shift things so that the musicians still had master classes with some of the world's greatest judges that we have been able to bring in. And so this year, basically what happened, the format was such that the musicians were able to record their works in their own home space. Traditionally, they would come to Detroit at the Orchestra Hall, the Maxim Fisher Rodriguez Music Center. They would come there to do the competition. But this year, they were able to do things from their own home. We provided the support that they needed in terms of recordings and just kind of walked them through that process. And we were able to actually reach a wider audience because everything is virtual or everything was virtual for the competition. So we were able to reach new audiences, reach out to some new venues and partners to ensure that they had students and people attending the competition as well. So it's been great. And hopefully next year we'll be able to do it back in person again. But if not, we're set up for success from this year for sure.
Yeah. So talk about the level of competition this year. That's always, I think, the real highlight of Sphinx. As you say, it gets better and better each year.
Yeah. The level of competition is really something that comes from the musicians themselves. Sphinx puts the musicians in a place where they feel supported and where they feel valued. And I think that's something that's really important, not just in arts, but just in life in general, is for people to feel valued so that they can put their best foot forward. So from our end, we want to make sure that they have, access to a hall if they need a hall to record or recording equipment. In this particular case, piano accompanist and for them not to worry about, having to pay for those types of things. We provide that type of support for them as well. So as long as Sphinx is doing, as long as we're doing our job of making the musicians feel valued and supporting them, then they have the opportunity to really focus on their art and their craft so that they can be in the practice room or being with their teachers and studying scores and music and listening and really preparing for the competition. And that's one of the main ways that and reasons how and why the competition this year was very competitive in both the junior and the senior division. I think the jury panel had a very hard time deciding, first, second, and third place this year. Anyone could have won in this year.
Yeah. And of course, the idea of Sphinx is to, as you say, give people the opportunity and a showcase for their talent. But the goal really is to increase the numbers of Black and brown kids who want to do this, right? Want to be musicians and also have the opportunity to get to that high level. Talk just a little bit about how we're doing with that. When Sphinx started, of course, we were in a really different place. Where are we in 2021?
Yeah, I'll say in 2021 that we have seen some changes happening across the field. Of course, we do have a long way to go still. As you said, the Sphinx organization is really to support the artists. And so we've been able to do that in a host of ways, some of them through not just the Sphinx competition, but also through some of the programs where the people who participate in the Sphinx competition are able to have an impact. So for example, the winners of the competition are able to play with some of our partner orchestras. Well, the great thing about that is when they go to play with partner orchestras in a different community, they are now reaching other students, and not just students, but other audiences, audience members, teachers, patrons, who can not only experience it, but also see Black and Brown musicians on stage. And that's a very important part of this that gets lost in the shuffle sometimes, is that it's not just about talking about it, but we have to actually see it on stage. And so we've seen an increase through some of those efforts. Of course, there's a long way to go, and a lot of programs that we have to support, not just from the musician side, but also the artistic administration side as well. And so those are things that we continually will put in place. And as I said before, continue to adapt and evolve what we do as an organization.
Yeah, and of course, classical music as a field, as a profession, is changing too in terms of the opportunities that exist. Orchestras don't look like they did just 5 or 10 years ago, and I think one of the fears is that those changes also make it more difficult to maintain access to those who didn't have it before. Talk about how we're doing with the change in classical music and maintaining that Black and Brown presence.
Yeah, well, there's a lot of changes that are happening, especially in terms of how when we talk about entry points into classical music, of course, that's changed. When we talk about who's even coming to the concerts, of course, that has changed over the years as well. And that starts from a place of understanding and commitment by the organizations, not just from the musicians who you see on stage, not just the administrators who are behind the scenes, but also from a board level as well. So when we're talking about the changes over the past 5 to 10 years, from our perspective, we're actually pushing orchestras to have those conversations at the board of directors level, at the full-time staff level, the part-time staff level, even in terms of the vendors that you're able to bring in. Because when you really diversify in that way, and you talk about vendors and you talk about, the board presence, you're bringing in outside sources that would have otherwise not been able or even thought about coming into that type of environment. And so those are the types of changes that we would like to see and to continue over the next 5 to 10 years. One of the things that we are really tackling right now is the idea of how orchestras are doing their audition processes and things of that nature. And so that's something that we're really focused on right now. Orchestra audition processes, how you are recruiting artistic administrators, how are you recruiting your boards, ensuring that you're not keeping things in a circle in terms of your circle of friends and people that you know. We have to look outside of the bubble and create opportunity. And that's what the Sphinx organization is about. That's what the competition is about, is really creating opportunities and providing that support for everyone.